Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Grab a drink, because what I'm about to share might leave you speechless. He knocked twice. Not once, twice. That was the detail that kept echoing in my head as I stood frozen in my hallway, holding a chipped coffee mug and listening to the soft tap of knuckles against my door. The last time someone knocked on that door twice, I lost everything. So I didn't move. Not right away. The second knock was softer, almost like a question. I set the mug down and walked slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. I opened the door, and there she was. Not Trina, no. That would have been too easy. Instead, it was a girl. 12, maybe 13. She had Trina's eyes. And my ears. She looked terrified, holding a crumpled envelope with both hands like it was made of glass. "Are you Dwight Milner?" she asked. I nodded. She handed me the envelope, turned, and ran down the sidewalk like she was being chased. And just like that, my past punched a hole through the life I thought I had rebuilt. But let's rewind. Because none of this would have happened if I hadn't opened the wrong door 5 years ago, a door I never should have touched. Not metaphorically. I mean an actual door. See, I was at the Marlowe Hotel. My wife, Trina, was hosting some high-profile donor event. She told me not to come, said it was dry, long-winded political nonsense. But I showed up anyway, figuring I'd surprise her with her favorite lavender macaroons from that bakery near 6th and Porter. The hotel was a maze of identical hallways and pretentious lighting. I knocked on room 2416. No answer. I was about to call her when I heard laughter down the hall. Her laughter. I followed the sound. I shouldn't have. Room 2408. Door slightly open. No voices now, just the clink of a wine glass and the low hum of a man's voice, smug and unhurried. I pushed the door open, thinking I'd joke my way into a sweet reunion. Instead, I watched my wife of 6 years adjust her dress, while Councilman Barton pulled his tie back on and smirked like he'd just won a trophy. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just dropped the bag of macaroons and left. That was the last time I saw Trina. Until last night. And that envelope? It didn't just reopen wounds. It came with instructions. And a name I was never supposed to know. The envelope wasn't thick, but it felt heavy in my hands. The paper was worn like it had been folded and unfolded too many times, maybe out of fear, maybe hesitation. My name was written on it in blue ink, shaky and uneven. Dwight Milner. No Mr., no last name in bold. Just me. Plain. Like the truth inside didn't care to dress itself up. I sat down on the couch without turning on the light. I don't know why, but reading it in the dark felt safer, like shadows could cushion whatever was waiting for me inside. Inside were 2 sheets of paper and a photo. The first sheet was a short letter, handwritten and unsigned. If you're reading this, then I finally worked up the courage to tell you the truth. Please don't ignore her. She didn't ask for any of this. I made mistakes, selfish ones, but she's the only thing I've ever done right. She needs you more than I ever did. I'm sorry. Trina. The second paper? A birth certificate. Name, Lila Marin Barton. Mother, Trina Lowell. Father, Dwight Milner. I stared at it, so long my eyes blurred. My name was typed cleanly, official. There were seals, signatures, a notary stamp dated nearly 12 years ago. 12. She was mine. But I had never met her. Never held her. Never received a phone call, a letter, a whisper of her existence. Trina never told me she was pregnant when I left. Or maybe she didn't know yet. Or maybe she did, and that was the worst part. The photo was of Lila, same girl from the doorstep, standing in front of a school science fair project, grinning with a ribbon in her hand. Behind her, a man stood with sunglasses on, arms crossed. Even in a blurred background, I recognized him. Councilman Barton. He had raised her. The man I caught with my wife. The man she betrayed me with. The man who looked at me that night like I was disposable, had raised my daughter. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My hands trembled as I set the photo down on the coffee table. My apartment, which had always felt too quiet, suddenly pulsed with noise, memories, questions, fury. Then came the worst thought of all, the one that wouldn't let me sleep that night. If Barton knew she was mine, why would he allow this envelope to reach me? Unless he didn't know. And now that she'd shown up at my door, he would. That knock was never meant to be heard. And I had just opened something that wasn't supposed to be opened. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Lila, standing at my door like a ghost from a life I never lived. I kept replaying her voice, the hesitation in the way she said my name, the way her fingers clutched the envelope like she wasn't sure if giving it to me would fix something or destroy everything. By morning, the birth certificate and the photo were still sitting on my coffee table like evidence in a trial I didn't know I was part of. I hadn't even touched them since I dropped them there. I just stared, like somehow they'd vanish if I ignored them long enough. But they didn't. And neither did the knock at my door. This time, it was loud, confident, the kind of knock you feel in your chest. I didn't have to look through the peephole to know who it was. Councilman Barton. Except now, he wasn't wearing the smooth press conference smile he wore the night I caught him with my wife. He looked older, rougher, more tired, but his eyes still had that same gleam, the one that made you feel like you'd already lost before you even spoke. I assume she found you, he said. No hello, no pleasantries. He wasn't here for conversation. He was here for control. I didn't invite him in. He walked in anyway. I told her not to do it. He continued, scanning my apartment like he was assessing a threat. Told her it would only make things worse. But you know Trina. Once her mind's set. He stopped when he saw the photo. The shift in his face was immediate. Not panic. Not regret. Something colder. Where is she? I asked. His jaw tightened. Gone. Gone where? She left 2 days ago. I don't know where. She didn't say. She sent Lila. She didn't send anyone, he snapped. Lila took that envelope behind our backs. She ran away in the middle of the night. We've been looking for her. I couldn't tell if he was lying. Honestly, I wasn't sure it mattered. He stepped closer to the photo and picked it up like it was contaminated. You think she's yours? He asked, voice sharp. You really think Trina would lie about that? I said nothing. Because deep down, I didn't just think it. I knew. He set the photo back down, slower than before. If she's with you, he said, send her home. Don't make this mess any worse. And just like that, he turned and walked out. But what he didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that Lila wasn't with me. She never came inside. She had disappeared just as quickly as she'd arrived. And now, I had to find her. Before he did. I didn't even finish my coffee before I grabbed my keys. I didn't know where I was going, or what I would say when I found her, if I found her, but I knew one thing. I wasn't about to let Councilman Barton find her first. I didn't trust the way he looked at that photo, like it was a threat that needed neutralizing. Not a girl, not a daughter, just a liability. My first thought was to check the bus station. It was stupid, I know, but when you're desperate, logic becomes a luxury. I scanned every waiting bench, every corner, asking myself over and over, why now? Why me? Why her? No sign of Lila. I pulled out the envelope again. Maybe I missed something. A clue. A post-it. Anything. Nothing. Until I flipped the photo over. In the corner, scrawled lightly in pencil, barely visible, was one word, Elliot's. It clicked instantly. Elliot's Diner. A rundown, open, 24 hours kind of place on Madison and 12th. Trina and I used to go there in the early years, back when we could still laugh over bad pancakes and pretend we had our own corner of the world. It had faded from my memory like everything else attached to her, until now. I drove like a man possessed. When I pushed open the door to Elliot's, the bell above it gave that same dull jingle I remembered. A couple of college kids were in a booth, laughing too loud. A man with a trucker cap stirred his coffee in silence. The waitress behind the counter didn't even look up. But on the far wall, just above a cracked leather booth, was something new. A wall filled with Polaroids, mostly of regulars and their Elliot's first-timer moments. And among them, dated just last week, was one I didn't expect to see. Lila, holding a plate of birthday pancakes, a candle stuck in the middle, smiling like she belonged there. A girl celebrating something no one around her understood. The waitress must have seen me staring because she finally looked up. She yours? She asked cautiously. I nodded, my throat suddenly dry. She was here. Real sweet kid. Polite. Nervous. Kept looking at the door like she thought someone might barge in. Did she say where she was going? I asked. The waitress paused, biting her lip. She left a note. Said if anyone came asking, especially a man in a blue suit, we should pretend we hadn't seen her. I felt the blood drain from my face. But for you, she added, pulling something from beneath the register. She said this was okay. It was another envelope. And inside was a map, with only one thing circled in red. A cabin, in the woods, and a note written in her shaky hand. Please come alone. The map was hand-drawn. Not printed, not copied, drawn. With pencil lines, smudged edges, and creases from being folded too many times. A red circle, almost shaky, looped around a place marked only as Ridgeway Cabin. No town, no address, just a spot surrounded by trees and one arrow that said, use the back road. I hadn't been to Ridgeway in years, not since a company retreat back, when Trina and I still pretended we were building something solid. It was about 2 hours north, tucked between forgotten hiking trails and aging pine forests. There was no cell service there, no neighbors, just silence and shadows. I packed a small bag, flashlight, water, old phone charger, notepad. I didn't even know what I was preparing for. An explanation? A breakdown? Another secret? The road out of the city was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you realize how loud your mind really is. I kept thinking about Barton. What if he knew where she was going? What if he had a map too? What if this was some elaborate setup, and I was just the last fool to join the game? But then I remembered Lila's eyes, the fear, the hope. That kind of desperation doesn't lie. She wanted me to find her, not him. I took the back road like she asked. Gravel crunched beneath the tires, branches scratched the windows, and for a brief moment, I wondered if my car would even make it. Then I saw it. A single wooden cabin, half hidden behind a slope of overgrown brush. Smoke drifted faintly from the chimney. There were no other cars. No sounds. Just a weak porch light that flickered like it didn't want to be seen. I stepped out slowly, every instinct screaming caution. And then the door creaked open. Lila stood there, bundled in a jacket 3 sizes too big, her face pale and eyes red-rimmed. She didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, she looked relieved and exhausted. "Are you alone?" she whispered. I nodded. She opened the door wider, motioning me inside. I hesitated for a second, then stepped across the threshold. The cabin smelled like firewood, instant noodles, and fear. "You shouldn't have come," she said quietly, "but I'm glad you did." And before I could ask a single question, she pulled something from under the table and placed it in front of me. A journal. Worn, water-stained, locked. "This belonged to Mom," she said. "Everything's in here. What she did, what he did, why I had to run." I looked at the journal, then at her. And that's when she said the one sentence that changed everything. "He's not who you think he is." And neither was she. The lock on the journal was old, not secure, just symbolic. Lila didn't have the key, but she handed me a hairpin without saying a word. I picked the lock carefully, like opening it too fast might trigger something neither of us were ready for. When it clicked, she flinched. Not dramatically, just enough that I knew, whatever was inside, she'd read it already. The first page was covered in Trina's handwriting. I would have recognized it anywhere. Elegant, slanted, precise. It was dated 7 years ago, just a few months after I walked out of her life without knowing she was carrying mine inside her. "Dwight will never forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me. I chose ambition over loyalty. I let power blind me to the life we built. And now Barton owns pieces of me I can't get back." Each entry after that got darker. She wrote about Barton's manipulation, how he isolated her from friends, pressured her to commit, not just physically, but socially. How he started controlling her image, her interviews, her schedule, their schedule. Every meeting, every headline, every event she was invited to had conditions. Trina described it as a velvet leash, soft enough to wear without pain, but tight enough to leave bruises under the surface. Then came the entries about Lila. He said claiming Dwight as the father would ruin the narrative, that he'd look weak. He told me to erase him from the birth certificate, but I couldn't. Not completely. I told him I did, but I forged the file. I left Dwight's name where it belonged. I thought, maybe one day. I turned the pages faster. He found out. I don't know how. He flew into a rage. Told me if I ever let Lila near Dwight, he'd take everything. My job, my name, my freedom. He said no one would believe me. And I believed him. Lila sat across from me, silent, watching me read her mother's shame in real time. "He told her you were dangerous," she said quietly. "That you abandoned us. She made me promise never to look for you. But I found the journal in her closet after she left. After she just vanished." That word again. Vanished. "She's not with him?" I asked, surprised. "No one's seen her. Not for months." "Then why now? Why show up at my door?" She hesitated. "Because I think she tried to leave him. and I think he didn't let her. That thought sat between us like ice. I thought maybe if you knew everything, she added, voice cracking, you could help me find her. I closed the journal and looked at my daughter, the girl I never knew I had, asking for help I never knew I'd have to give. Outside, a twig snapped. One sharp crack, then silence. Lila's eyes widened. We weren't alone anymore. I motioned for Lila to stay quiet, holding a finger to my lips as I moved toward the window. My heart thudded loud enough I was sure she could hear it. Another footstep. This time closer. Slow. Deliberate. Whoever was out there wasn't lost. They were looking for something. Or someone. Or maybe they already knew. The woods outside were still. Moonlight slipped through the trees like a secret. I couldn't see anyone, but the crunch of leaves confirmed it. We weren't alone. I stepped back from the window and killed the lights. Lila clutched the journal like it was a shield. Her breathing had gone shallow, too controlled for a girl her age. She'd been through this before. That scared me more than anything outside the door. I reached into my bag and pulled out the flashlight, flipping it on and off quickly in the direction of the back hallway. Lila nodded. She moved without sound. We crept through the cabin toward the back exit. It was barely more than a warped wooden panel with a loose handle, but it opened without a creak. We slipped out into the trees and crouched behind a rusted water tank, just as the cabin's front porch groaned under someone's weight. A silhouette passed in front of the window, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing something that glinted like a badge or a pin. Councilman Barton had always carried himself like the world owed him silence. This figure walked like that. Lila leaned in close to whisper, but I stopped her. Then came the sound that froze both of us, the cabin door creaking open. Whoever it was had gone inside. It gave us seconds, maybe less. I grabbed Lila's hand and pulled her toward the woods. We ran. Not far, just deep enough into the trees that the cabin disappeared from view. My chest burned from the cold air, my knees hated me. But we kept going until we found a cluster of rocks and crouched behind them, gasping quietly. Lila finally spoke, whispering so low I almost missed it. I think he's been following me. Since I left. She wasn't wrong. He'd known where to find me. He'd arrived too soon after she had. He was tracing her steps, waiting for her to lead him straight to me. To this. And now he had. I looked at her, this brave, terrified stranger who carried my name on a certificate and my blood in her veins. If we go back, I said, we can't do it alone. She didn't answer. She just reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a phone. It was old, screen cracked, low on battery. And it was recording. He said if I ever exposed him, she whispered, no one would believe me. She looked up at me, tears finally surfacing. But now they might believe you. We stayed hidden in the woods until morning. Neither of us slept. Lila kept that phone gripped tight in her hands, like it was the only proof she had left that her reality wasn't just a nightmare with sharp suits and empty promises. By sunrise, my decision was made. I wasn't running anymore. We drove straight to the Attorney General's office. Not the police. I didn't trust Barton's reach. He had friends in uniform, probably favors stacked in file cabinets I'd never see. But the state? That was different. His power came from image, and we had something that could shatter it. Lila's recording. It wasn't just audio of his threats. It was confession. A voice, low and deliberate, talking about suppressing records, threatening Trina, using pressure to make her disappear quietly. It was enough. They acted fast. By the end of the week, headlines exploded. State councilman under investigation after explosive allegations surface. The public turned. Sponsors withdrew. His photo vanished from websites overnight. And then, quietly, without a press release, he was arrested. But the real surprise came 2 weeks later. I was sitting on the porch, watching the leaves shake loose in the autumn wind, when a gray sedan pulled into my driveway. The door opened slowly, and Trina stepped out. She looked thinner, older, but not broken. She walked like someone who had finally stopped running. I had to disappear, she said. To protect her. To protect you. Lila ran into her arms before I could respond. We talked for hours that night. About the lies. The fear. The years lost. No one said sorry. It wasn't that kind of conversation. It was heavier. Honest. Human. Lila stayed with me. She said she needed time, space, normalcy. I cook too much now. She hates half the meals, but always says thank you. Trina visits once a week. Slowly, we're stitching something back together. Not the same life, but maybe something better. And me? I finally believe I wasn't the coward Barton said I was. I was just waiting for the right moment to speak up. Turns out, it came when someone knocked on my door, not to break me, but to bring me back to life. Thanks for listening to this wild, emotional ride on Reddit Confessions. If you made it this far, I'd love to know, what part of this story hit you the hardest? Was it the envelope? The journal? The recording? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow for more drama, heartbreak, and redemption stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind.